Hello students, I am VLN Swarupini, lecturer from Sri Venkateswara College of Arts and Sciences, which is affiliated to Adi Kavi Nannaya University, Rajahmundry. Now I would like to discuss about third BSc Biochemistry, fifth semester, fifth paper, topic post-translational modifications, which will be followed by Lacoperon concept. Okay, so let's discuss these two topics from this paper. So earlierly we discussed about translation. Now let's see this post-translational modifications of proteins. Okay, so in post-translational modifications, these are required by the polypeptide protein chain for its expression. Okay, so this immature polypeptide chain should be converted into a matured polypeptide chain by the post-translational modifications. The protein synthesis is in translations are as such are functional. Okay, that means these are meant for the functional activity of the protein. So many changes takes place in the polypeptide after the initiation of their synthesis or more frequently after the protein synthesis is completed. Okay, so this particular protein post-translational modifications are meant for the functional activity of the protein, and this is produced after the initiation of their synthesis or after the protein synthesis is completed. Okay, and these modifications include protein folding, trimming by proteolytic degradation, intron splicing, and colon changes, which are collectively known as post-translational modification. So let's see all these in detail. The first one is proteolytic degradation. Degradation means removal of unwanted things we can do, or we can remove the unwanted things by this proteolytic degradation. Let's see this. Many proteins are synthesized as the precursor, which are much bigger in size than the functional protein. And some proteins of precursors molecules are removed by proteolysis. Proteolysis to liberate active proteins. Okay, so these polypeptide chains or proteins, after translation process, these will be in the form of its precursors, and these are very much bigger in their size when compared to the functional protein. So some proteins of precursor molecules are removed by proteolysis process. Proteolysis means nothing but protein lysis. Okay, proteolysis to liberate active proteins. So to form active proteins we undergo proteolytic degradation. Okay, so this process is commonly referred to as trimming. Okay, so it is nothing but trimming. Trimming is nothing but cutting of the unwanted things. Okay, so the formation of insulin from pre-proinsulin. So we can this pre-proinsulin is the precursor form of the protein insulin. Okay, so here in this process of formation of insulin from pre-proinsulin, conversion of zymogen is nothing but the inactive form of any component is called as zymogen, and zymogen inactive digested enzymes like trypsinogen, conversion of the zymogen to the active to activate. Examples are some examples like examples for trimming are intron splicing. This is intron, intron splicing. Introns are intervening sequences in certain proteins. These are comparable to introns in mRNA, and these introns have to be removed and extrons ligated in the appropriate order for the portion to become active. That means the introns will be removed. These are the non nonsense, like these are like a nonsense or non coding regions. Okay, so these will be removed and extrons will be properly arranged in an order, and this will help in the activation of that particular protein. And the next one is covalent modifications. The protein synthesis in translation are subjected to many covalent changes by these modifications in the amino acids. Okay, and the portions may be converted into active form or inactive form. Okay, so these can be converted into active form or inactive form. And here few examples of covalent modifications are phosphorylation, hydroxylation, glycosylation. So let's see all three of these covalent modifications. Okay, first one is phosphorylation. The hydroxyl group containing amino acid of proteins, namely serine, threonine, tyrosine, are subjected to phosphorylation. Okay, these are subjected to phosphorylation, and the phosphorylation may either increase or decrease the activity of proteins. Okay, here, the hydroxy group containing amino acids like serine, threonine, and tyrosine, if these are present in the proteins, they are subjected to phosphorylation. So, if amino acids like serine, threonine, and tyrosine are present in proteins, these are subjected to phosphorylation, and phosphorylation may either increase or decrease the activity of proteins. Okay, either increase or decrease the activity of proteins. And a group of enzymes called as protein kinases. So these are the enzymes which will help in the degradation of the protein. So these are special type of enzymes which act on proteins, and these are called as protein kinases, and these catalyze phosphorylation reaction. Okay, these will catalyze phosphorylation reaction, while protein phosphatases are responsible for dephosphorylation. Okay, for phosphorylation protein kinases are used, and for dephosphorylation protein phosphatases are the enzymes which help in the dephosphorylation process. And many enzymes that undergo phosphorylation or dephosphorylation are known in metabolism. So many enzymes, few enzymes, they undergo both phosphorylation and dephosphorylation, like glycogen synthase. Okay, and the next one is hydroxylation. So, in this hydroxylation, during the formation of collagen, the amino acids proline and lysine are respectively converted into hydroxyproline and hydroxylysine. Okay, so during the formation of the protein collagen, so collagen is a protein, and during its formation, amino acids which are present in that collagen, proline and lysine, will be converted into their hydroxy forms in the form of hydroxyproline and hydroxylysine. Okay, this hydroxyproline and hydroxylysine are formed by the hydroxylation process, and the hydroxylation occurs in the endoplasmic reticulum and requires vitamin C also. Okay, it is occurred in endoplasmic reticulum and it requires vitamin C. And the next one is glycosylation. Here the attachment of carbohydrate moiety is essential for some proteins to perform their functions. Okay, so few Few proteins, they need the attachment of carbohydrate moiety for their activity. Okay, and the complex carbohydrate moiety is attached to the amino acid serine and threonine. Okay, or to asparagine, and leading to the synthesis of glycoprotein. So uh, glycosylation will occur for few amino acids which require a carbon moiety for their activity. So those particular amino acids are like serine, threonine, asparagine. These three amino acids, they bind with carbohydrate moiety and ultimately produce a glycoprotein, and the process for this is glycosylation. Okay, so these are the few covalent modifications which we see as post translational modifications. And the next topic is inhibitors for protein synthesis. So inhibitors for protein synthesis, translation was inhibited by various antibodies. Translation was inhibited by various antibodies, which are the substances produced by bacteria, fungi, and which inhibit the growth of other organisms. The action of few important antibodies on translation is described below. Okay, so inhibitors, we all know these are nothing but the chemical components which stop the activity of translation. Okay, so this is mostly inhibited by anti uh, antibodies, which are the substances produced by bacteria. That means these are nothing but antibiotics. These are mostly inhibited by antibiotics. And whenever we grow bacteria and fungi, they produce few components and they will inhibit the growth of other organisms and the activity of few important antibodies on the translation. Okay, so let's see few antibiotics which inhibit the process of protein synthesis, and the first one is streptomycin. Streptomycin is a powerful antibiotic and inhibits the initiation stage of translocation. So this particular streptomycin will inhibit translocation process. Okay, so movement of ribosome will be inhibited by the streptomycin and translation will be inhibited. Okay, it causes misreading of mRNA and interferes with normal pairing between codons and anticodons. Okay, so there will be no proper reading of the mRNA by failing of this translocation process. Okay, and the next one is tetracycline, and this tetracycline will inhibit binding of amino acyl tRNA to ribosomal complex. So this tetracycline will inhibit the binding of amino acyl tRNA to ribosomal complexes. Okay, and the next one is puromycin, and the next one is puromycin, and it enters the A site and gets incorporated into growing peptide chain, causing the release. Okay, so this how this puromycin will inhibit, and it enters the A site and gets incorporated in the growing peptide chain. So this will block the A site of the ribosomal subunit, and there will be no further growth in the peptide chain. Okay, and whatever the peptide chain produced till now, it will be released. Okay, and the next one is chlorophenicol. It is also one of the main antibiotic which will inhibit this translation process, and this will act as a competitive inhibitor of the peptidyl transferases and interfere with elongation phase. Okay, so this will inhibit the elongation phase of the translation process. So these are the antibiotics like streptomycin, tetracycline, puromycin, and chloramphenicol. These are the four important antibiotics which will inhibit the translation process. And also we have erythromycin and diphtheria toxins. Okay, this erythromycin is also an antibiotic which will inhibit translocation process. So here if you see in the four antibiotics what we discussed earlier, this particular streptomycin will also block the translocation phase. Here erythromycin will also block the translocation phase by binding with 50S subunit of the bacterial chromosome. Okay, and the next one is diphtheria toxins. Okay, so this is not an antibiotic, this is a toxin. That means it is a poisonous component which will inhibit this translation process, and it prevents translocation in eukaryote protein synthesis by inactivating elongation factor uh, EF2. Okay, EF2 will be inhibited, which leads to the inhibition of translation. Okay, so these are the inhibitors of this translation. So now let's see about gene expression using this Lac-Operon concept. Okay, using gene Lac-Operon concept, let's see this gene expression. Okay, so here if you see Lac-Operon, it is a classic example of a catabolite regulated operon, the Lac-Operon, and responsible for obligating energy from beta galactosidases such as lactose. Okay, responsible for obtaining energy from beta galactosidases such as lactose. When E. coli is grown in presence of lactose, its utilization requires galactose primase and beta galactosidase, which hydrolyzes lactose to galactose and glucose. So if you see the structures here, lactose will be converted into galactose and glucose with the help of beta galactosidase enzyme. Okay, so here this Lac-Operon is a classic example for catabolytic regulation. So this particular lactose operon will explain about catalytic regulation. Okay, and this is responsible for obtaining energy from beta galactosides. Okay, beta galactosides such as lactose. Okay, and here this E. coli will be grown in the presence of lactose, and its utilization requires galactose permease and beta galactosidase, which hydrolyzes lactose to galactose and glucose. So whenever we have taken this E. coli and we have grown it in the artificial medium with lactose, it will uh, utilizes lactose as a energy source, and for this what it should do is it should break the lactose into galactose and glucose, in which it will use these monomers as energy source. Okay, for separation or for liberation of this lactose into galactose and glucose, it requires beta galactosidase and also galactosid permease. And here the Lac-Operon codes for a complex promoter region. Okay, a complex promoter region, and it is called as P site. Okay, and Three, structural genes whose products are important for lactose metabolism. Okay. And few structural genes. Okay. Structural genes uh, which are responsible for the lactose metabolism. These structural genes, when expressed, will produce three different products which will help the lactose metabolism. Okay, here the Z gene codes for beta galactosidase and Y gene for will code for lactose permease, and that this lactose permease helps in the it will be transported. Okay, when lactose is present, it acts as an inducer of the operon, and it enters the cell and binds to the lac repressor, inducing a conformational change that allows the repressor to fall off the DNA. Now, the RNA polymerase is free to move along the DNA, and RNA can be made from the three genes. Lactose can now be metabolized. So what is happening here? These structural genes will produce, Z gene will produce beta galactosidase, enzyme, and Y gene will produce lactose permease. So this and when lactose is present, what will happen? It acts as inducer for the operon. So first of all, what is operon means? Operon is a cluster of genes whose transcription is regulated by a set of genes. Okay, its transcription is regulated by few genes. And what are they? Structural and functional genes. Here we are discussing about structural genes Z and Y. Z is responsible for the this particular enzyme beta galactosidase, and Y is responsible for the lactose permease. Okay, so firstly, to understand this operon is a cluster of genes, and this transcription is regulated by set of genes, and these cluster of genes whose transcription is regulated by set of genes. And operon is a set of closely related linked genes regulating a metabolic pathway in prokaryotes. Okay, and the operon concept for the first time described by Jacob and Monod in the year 1961. Okay, in the year 1961. Okay, so uh, there are regulatory genes, promoter, operator sequences. In lac operon is responsible for the synthesis of lactose in E. coli in the presence of lactose. Okay, it will synthesize lactose in E. coli in the presence of lactose. That means whenever this E. coli is grown in the lactose medium, this will help to produce lactose by the E. coli, and this lactose which is present in the medium, it will act as inducer. So here it will act as, due to the presence of lactose in the medium, it will act as inducer of that particular lactone operon or lactose operon. Okay, and it acts as inducer. So E. coli cell only grow in lactose culture medium, and it will produce uh, lactose. Okay, and it enters cell. Okay, the lactose which is present in the medium will enter the cell, and it will bind to lac repressor, inducing a conformational change, and that will allows the repressor to fall off the DNA, and now the RNA polymerase is free to move along the DNA, and RNA can be made from the three genes. Lactose can be metabolized. Okay, so here when the inducer lactose is removed, the repressor returns to its original conformation and binds to DNA, so that RNA polymerase can no longer get past the promoter. No RNA and no protein is made. So here note that RNA polymerase can still bind to promoter, though it is unable to move past it. That means the That means that when the cell is ready to use the operon, RNA polymerase is ready there and waiting to begin transcription. The promoter does not have to wait for the holoenzyme to bind. We could say that the operon is primed for transcription upon the addition of lactose. Okay, so here what happens? If the lactose is removed, what will happen? The repressor will move to the original state and it will bind to DNA so that RNA polymerase can no longer transcript. So no RNA. So no RNA, no protein is made in the absence of lactose. If the lactose is present, what will happen? It will enter the cell and it will bind to the lac repressor inducing lac repressor, and it will induce conformational change and it will lead to repressor push to the DNA, and now RNA polymerase will be free to move and this will transcribe DNA into RNA. Okay, RNA can be made from the 3 genes of lactose and this lactose will be metabolized. In the absence, there will be no RNA and no protein. And here RNA polymerase can still bind to promoter. So that means even though lactose is not present, this RNA polymerase, even though it can bound to this promoter, and this means that when the cell is ready to use the operon, RNA polymerase uh, red, will be ready and waiting for the transcription process. Okay. So when levels of glucose, okay, a catabolite in the cell are high, a molecule called cyclic AMP is inhibited from forming. Okay, so due to presence of glucose, CAMP formation will be inhibited. When glucose levels drop, more CAMP will form and the CAMP binds to protein called catabolite activator protein, and which is then activated to bind to a cap binding site, and this activates transcription perhaps by increasing the affinity of the site for RNA polymerase. This phenomenon is called as catabolite repression, and it involves activation through since the presence of glucose suppresses all the other sugar metabolism operons. Okay, here in by the presence of this glucose, the cell at higher concentration, CAMP cyclic AMP will be inhibited. Okay, in whenever the glucose is less, CAMP will be high, and this will activate the CAMP will activate for the formation of this catabolate activator protein, and this will uh, will bind to CAP binding site, and this will activate transcription. Okay, and finally after transcription it will increase the affinity of the site for RNA polymerase, and this lead to catabolate repression, and it involves activation through presence of glucose, repression of all other sugar molecule operons. Okay, now let's see operon concept. The operon is the coordinated unit of gene expression in bacteria. So it is nothing but the uh, coordinating unit of gene expression in bacteria. So one more point about operon, what I told, operon is a cluster of genes where transcription is regulated by a set of genes. Okay, here this operon concept is nothing but the it will explain about the gene expression. Okay, ultimately it will explain about the gene expression. And the concept of operon was introduced by Jacob de Monod in the year 1961. Okay, based on their observations on the regulation of lactose. Observation Based on their observation on the regulation of lactose, they explained this lacoperon in the year 1961. Okay, particularly this lacoperon, Jacob and Monod observed in the E. coli, and this is popularly known as lacoperon. Okay, if you see the structural genes of the lacoperon or structure of the lacoperon consists of a regulatory gene I for inhibition, operator gene O, and three structural genes Z, Y, and A. Okay, simply I think there is yeah, if you see this diagram, you can have a better idea about this lacoperon. It contains a regulatory gene for inhibition, promoter gene, and operator gene, structural genes like X, Y, and A. So apart from these three genes, there is a promoter site also, and next to the operator gene where the RNA polymerase binds. This RNA polymerase will bind at the promoter region, and this operator, promoter, and inhibit and also regulating gene or the inhibitor gene. These three are called as functional genes, whereas Z, Y, A are called as structural genes. Okay, so if you see about structural genes, the activation of structural genes will produce the protein in the metabolic pathway. Okay, and the protein structural information present in structural genes, it will be uh, produced by the activation. And in the lacoperon, structural genes are lac Z, lac Y, and lac A. Okay, these are the structural genes. Okay, and if you see the functions of these structural genes, if you see the function of these structural genes, lac Z, lac Z gene will produce the enzyme beta galactosidase. Okay, and what is the purpose of this beta galactosidase is it will catalyze the breakdown of lactose. It will catalyze the breakdown of lactose into glucose and galactose, and the E. coli uses glucose as energy source. Okay, and lac-Y gene produces the enzyme beta galactoside permease. Okay, beta galactoside permease, and what is the function of this permease? It catalyzes the transfer of lactose from culture medium to E. coli cell. So this lactose is from the medium is transported to the cell of the E. coli with the help of this enzyme beta galactoside permease. Okay, and also lac A will produce enzyme trans-estylase, and here uh, the function of this particular enzyme trans-estylase is not now yet. Okay, so these structural genes Z, Y, A are respectively code for enzymes beta galactosidase, permease, and galactoside estylase. And beta galactosidase is responsible for the splitting or hydrolysis of glucose and hydrolysis of lactose to glucose and galactose, and permease is responsible for the transportation of lactose into the cell, and also for the third component is estylase. Its function is not yet known properly. Okay, and here the structural genes ZYA will transcribe into a single large mRNA with three independent translation units for the synthesis of 3 distinct enzymes. Okay, so the mRNA coding for more than one protein is known as polycystonic mRNA. Okay, so as this mRNA will code for 3 enzymes or 3 components, 3 different components, it is called as polycystonic mRNA. So now let's see about the repression. Okay, before that we'll see about functional genes. Here functional genes contain some activity and these genes are activated by the structural genes. Okay, whatever the structural genes Z, Y, A are there, these will activate the functional genes. These are regulatory gene, operator gene and promoter gene. Here regulatory gene produces the repressor. Okay, and it inhibits the structural gene when the RNA polymerase binds to promoter site. Okay, and it activates the operator and causes transcription of structural gene. So if you see the structure of this lactocopron, it is present as IPOZYA. That means first present is regulatory gene. Okay, and what is the function of this regulatory gene? This regulatory gene produces repressor. By this, repression of the lactocopron will be produced. Okay, and if after I there will be P. Okay, so P means promoter site, and at this promoter site only RNA polymerase will bind, and by binding of this RNA polymerase at promoter site will initiate the operator site, and what will happen? Transcription process of these structural genes will be produced. Then what will happen? Structural genes LAC-Z will produce the enzyme beta galactosidase. Okay, and what this beta galactosidase will do? It will split lactose into glucose and galactose. And next one, LAC-Y, it will produce beta galactosidase permease and it will transfer lactose into lactose present in the medium into the E. coli cell. Okay, so this is how expression of the gene of lactocopron will be carried. So now let's see about the repression of lactocopron. Okay, the regulatory gene I is constructive and it is expressed for the constant rate leading to the synthesis of lac repressor. Okay, so this regulatory gene will help in the production of repressor. Okay, lac repressor, and this lac repressor is a tetrameric 4 subunit regulatory protein. Okay, this lac repressor, which is synthesized by the activity of this regulatory gene, is a tetrameric. That means it is present with 4 subunits. Okay, and this particular regulatory protein has molecular weight of 1,50,000 and which specifically binds to the operator gene. So this will bind at the operator gene and this will prevent the binding of RNA polymerase. It will bind at the operator region and prevents the binding of the enzyme RNA polymerase to the promoter site P. Okay, by this what will happen? There is blocking in the transcription of structural genes Z, Y and A. Okay, and this is what happens in the absence of lactose in E. coli. Okay, if lactose is not available in sufficient amount to the E. coli, what will happen? This regulatory gene will produce lac repressor, and this will bind to the operator region, promoter region, and it will block the transcription of or activity of operator gene, and it will inhibit the structural genes transcription. Okay, so the repressor molecule acts as a negative regulator of gene expression. Regulation of this lack of boron will be a negative in a negative way. Okay, so now let's see depression of lac operon. Depression of lac operon. In the presence of lactose, in the medium, a small amount of it can enter the E. coli cell. Okay, and lactose which is present in the medium will enter the E. coli cell in a very less amount. These molecules, what they do is have high affinity for lactose, and lactose molecule bind and induce a conformational change in the repressor. Okay, it will change the repressor. So the result is that the repressor gets inactivated and therefore cannot bind to the operator gene. Okay, and the RNA polymerase attaches to the DNA at the promoter site and transcription proceeds, leading to formation of polycystonic mRNA for genes Z, Y, A. And finally, these three enzymes will be produced. The lactose induces the synthesis of three enzymes: beta galactosidase, galactosid permease, and galactosid acetylase. And lactose acts by inactivating the repressor molecule, hence its process is known as depression of lac operon. Okay, depression of lac operon. So finally, these structural genes mRNA is produced, and these will produce these three enzymes. So this is called as depression of lac operon. And the attachment of RNA polymerase to promoter site requires the presence of a catabolite gene activator protein. So attachment of RNA polymerase to the promoter site, this requires the presence of CAP, okay, catabolite gene activator, bound to CAMP. CAP should bind to CAMP, and the presence of glucose lowers the intercellular concentration of CAMP by inactivating the enzyme adenylate cyclase responsible for the synthesis of CAMP due to the diminished level of CAMP, and the formation of CAP and CAMP is low. Okay, therefore the binding of RNA polymerase to DNA due to absence of CAP and CAMP, the transcription are almost negligible. So what happens here? This CAP and CAMP, these two bind to each other for the proper attachment of RNA polymerase to the promoter site. So here the presence of glucose lowers the intracellular concentration of this CAMP, and it will not help in the proper attachment, and it will not lead to proper attachment of this RNA polymerase, and there will be negligible amount of transcription. Okay, and in the presence of glucose, these will happen. Okay, thus glucose interferes with the expression of lac operon by depleting CAMP levels. Addition of exogenous CAMP is found to initiate the transcription of many inducible operons, including lac operon. So it is now clear that the presence of CAMP is essential for the transcription of structural genes of lac operon, and thus CAMP acts as a positive regulator for the gene expression. So here if you see the diagram, these repressor, if repressor binds to the operator gene, what will happen? Promoter gene will be blocked and there will be no translation. If this particular repressor is modified and this RNA polymerase will bind to the operator region and promoter region will activate, and finally mRNA will be produced. Okay. So CAP will help in the attachment of RNA polymerase, and whenever this CAP will bind at the promoter region, this CAP will lead to the attachment of RNA polymerase to the promoter region, and mRNA will be produced, and there will be production of these polycystonic mRNA with the help of this RNA polymerase, and finally these enzymes beta galactosidase from Y-gene, galactosid permease from Y-gene, and acetylase acetylase from the transacetylase from the A gene will be produced. Okay, and some restriction enzymes recognize palindromic sequences to cut DNA, but some other recognize non-palindromic sequences, and type 1 and C3 recognize specific sequences but cut far away for the recognition sites in duplex DNA. So this is about Lac-Operon concept. While listening to the class, please keep the material provided for you with you, and if you have any doubts, please contact me. Okay, thank you students. Thank you.